This week's story concerns a ghost which haunted a perfectly normal family. The family concerned consisted of a man and his wife and their teenage daughter. Some years ago, they bought a rather nice three-story Victorian house in a pleasant suburb of a large city. The house itself had been built in 1893 and had several large rooms with lovely high ceilings. The only substantial alteration which had been done on the house was the removal of the wall between the sitting room and the dining room to make one large airy room. Other than that, it was almost exactly as it had been when it was built. The family moved into the house in the early spring, and as is normal when people move house, it only took a couple of days to get things sorted out, but then it took much longer to actually settle everything in the right place. However, after some 5 or 6 months, the house was as they wanted it, and they were happy there. Their daughter was settled in her new school, and life was good. Even the cat, who was named Biddy, which they'd inherited with the house, had accepted them and had become part of the family. And then, one evening, a year after they'd moved in, the family had their first experience of something out of the ordinary. The mother and father had settled down in front of the television to watch the news, and their daughter was in her room at the top of the house doing her homework. The cat was sleeping quietly on the easy chair. Suddenly, without warning, the cat opened its eyes and sat bolt upright, instantly awake. She stared across the room into the part which contained the dining table, her eyes unblinking. The husband and wife wondered what she was staring at. They thought at first that she'd heard a noise, so the husband got up and went to have a look, but he found nothing. When he returned to the sitting room, he found the cat still staring towards the dining room. But this time, he heard her purring loudly and contentedly. The man and the woman put it down to the cat having had a good dream and resumed watching the television. The next time something strange happened was only 2 days later. Again, it was the cat which indicated that she had seen something or someone in the dining room. This time, both the man and his wife got up to investigate. Of course, they found nothing. But as they returned to the sitting room, the wife noticed that her book had disappeared. She went back to the dining room to see if she'd taken it there and left it, but it was nowhere to be found. They both searched all over, but to no avail. The book had vanished from the face of the earth. Mystified and a little annoyed, the wife accused her husband of playing games with her, but he denied he'd even touched the book, let alone moved it or hidden it. As it was quite late, they decided to make a cup of tea and then go to bed. But when the wife went into the bedroom, the first thing she saw was her book resting on the bedside table. Well, obviously, her daughter must have been playing a joke on her, so she called upstairs. There was no reply, and she went up to her daughter's room. She found her fast asleep. And so it went on. Over the next few weeks, numerous things happened which were not frightening in themselves, just annoying. One time, the man's briefcase disappeared from his study and reappeared downstairs almost immediately in the kitchen. Ornaments began to move from their places. Newspapers would mysteriously vanish and then turn up again neatly folded in a different room. Things would disappear for a few days and then turn up again in their rightful place as if they'd never been moved. Well, jokingly, the daughter suggested that they must have inherited a ghost with the house, as well as Biddy the cat. Now, as it happened, the husband was interested in the paranormal, so this suggestion was greeted with some seriousness, and he set about trying to find out if there was indeed a ghostly presence in the house. The next evening, the cat once again sat bolt upright, and as the husband and wife turned to look at her, they both saw a movement in the corner of their vision. Immediately, the cat started to purr loudly and turned its head on one side as if it was having its neck tickled. And then they saw the ghost. 1 second, there was no one there. The next, the figure of a young girl of about 13 could be clearly seen stroking the cat. At first, the two people stood stock still, wondering who this strange visitor was. And then the man asked quietly but firmly who she was and what she wanted. At first, it didn't seem as if the figure had heard him. Then she stopped stroking the cat and turned slowly to look at the couple. Suddenly, she gave a broad, friendly smile, and the two people clearly heard a girlish giggle as if something had amused her. They then both heard a voice which sounded like the name Frida. The figure of the girl then faded quickly from their sight, and the cat, who had been sitting quietly all this time, settled down to sleep again as if nothing had happened. Intrigued, they compared notes and found that they both experienced the same thing, so imagination was ruled out. The house did, after all, have a ghost. From then onwards, the girl appeared to them many times. And because the husband knew what to do in cases of hauntings, he set about finding out the history of the house. And he discovered that in 1898, some 5 years after the house had been built, the family who lived there had suffered a tragedy. Their 13-year-old daughter, who by all accounts was a pleasant, cheerful girl, had sadly fallen down the stairs and smashed her head against the post at the bottom. Whilst waiting for the doctor to arrive, she'd been laid on a chaise in the dining room, where she had peacefully died. The family's name was Worthington, and the daughter was called Frida. Right up until the family moved away from the house some 3 years later, the ghost of little Frida was seen many, many times. She became almost part of the family. And the night before the family moved, she appeared one last time and gave them all the biggest, most friendly and shining smile you could ever imagine. It was almost as if she was thanking them for making her so welcome. Since the family moved away, Frida has not actually appeared to the new owners of the house. However, she has obviously appeared to Biddy the cat, who stayed when the family moved. Because some 3 months after, the new owners contacted them and asked if they could explain why the cat stared at the dining room for no apparent reason, and often turned its head as if it was being stroked under the chin. When they were told that it was only the resident ghost, the new owners laughed and discreetly dropped the subject. Oh, by the way, I suppose I should tell you that the family that the ghost of Frida adopted was my own. So I really do know that this story is true.